Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. The next core set, Battle of Chaos, recently released in the OCG, which means we've got quite a few new cards to talk about, and we're gonna start with the Mesozoic maulers themselves, Dinorphia. Previously fan-translated as Dinoruffia, these monsters take the Insector approach to typing. They're so into their dinosaur cosplays that they've transcended their human form, and are now one with their dino DNA. It might seem like a bit of a cop-out, but if anime has taught me anything, it's that you can put sharp teeth and some prosthetics on a character design and get just about any monster person you could ever want. Their playstyle's aggressive and risky, but when you deal with dinosaurs, that just comes with the territory. So let's crack open the old paleontology textbook to familiarize ourselves with our fossil friends, no not those ones, piece together the skeleton of their game plan, then see which of our Cretaceous critters can collaborate consistently. Suit up, move out, and forget the meaning of fear, because it's time to delve into Dinorphia. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and what better way to travel down that road than on your dual runner? We'll be covering iconic 5Ds characters along the way, and our next stop is 20K, where we'll start the You Say Explained series, covering Stardust, Junk, and whatever other cards can help us rev it up! We've also got a Discord, which has a new channel where you can discuss the current goings-ons of mine and Noah new series, Progression Polls, and a Twitter, where you can stay up to date on channel news and my bad takes. And if you really like what I do here, please consider joining my YouTube membership. It's basically like a Twitch sub, emotes included, or backing me on Patreon so you can get your name in the credits, as well as help determine future explained videos that I make. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with Dinorphia? Well, they're a series of dark dinosaur monsters who operate in some kind of futuristic metropolis, though their goals aren't really well defined. There's a giant assault mech chasing them down in this image, which is probably in response to them breaking into wherever this is. Mechanically, they're all about living on the edge, lowering your life points to the bare minimum to unlock their full potential, while having a lot of protection in place to ensure that, once your life points get low, they don't get any lower. Their previous given name, Dinoruffias, was meant to include ruffians in the portmanteau, which seems pretty fitting, but the updated name is meant to reference dinorphine, a chemical your body produces that's responsible for pain regulation, maintaining your circadian rhythms, telling you when you're hungry, all sorts of stuff. It interacts with the hypothalamus, the part of your brain that's responsible for a bunch of your body's automatic processes like sleep, the nervous system, body temperature. You've seen Osmosis Jones, so you know what it's all about. What I'm getting at is that, barring any kind of canonical explanation in the future, it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that the Dinorphias have had some kind of hormone replacement therapy to give them more prehistoric power. Let's start with their main deck monsters, both of which are level 4. Dinorphia Diplos has 1000 attack and 0 defense, and if normal or special summoned, you can send a Dinorphia card from your deck to the grave, which is very nice considering the grave effects of our trap cards. Then, if your life points are 2000 or less, burn your opponent for 500 damage. And if destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish any trap card in your grave to special summon any level 4 or lower Dinorphia monster from your grave, except another copy of itself. So you've got grave set up with a little bit of burn mixed in, and they float into one of your companions when destroyed to help keep a body on board, giving it a bit of a Prank Kids Lampsies vibe if I'm being honest, which makes sense. Look into Diplo's eyes and tell me they aren't about to cause some mischief. Dinorphia Theresia has 1500 attack and 0 defense, and if normal or special summoned, you can set any Dinorphia trap card directly from your deck to your spell and trap zone. Then if your life points are 2000 or less, Theresia gains 500 attack. And like Diplos, if destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish a trap card from your grave to special summon a level 4 or lower Dinorphia monster from your grave. This gives them a neat little loop, always pulling trap cards out of your deck in one way or another to help fuel your effects, and you'll either end up burning your opponent for a cool 500, getting a 2000 attack beat stick on board, or both. If you've met the life point threshold, that is, but we'll get into how you do that in a bit. Though I do like how you only need to be at that threshold for the bonus effects, but are still a good pair of blockers in case things go sideways. That's all there easier to say on the subject. And that's all our main deck monsters, so let's move on to our extra deck offerings, the Fusions, all of which are level 6. Dinorphia Kentragina has 4000 attack and 0 defense, requiring 2 Dinorphia monsters with different names as material. Now, that seems really big, but they lose attack equal to your life points, so it's not ever gonna get that big, unless we pull some shenanigans. And during any main phase, as a quick effect, you can pay half your life points to banish a Dinorphia normal trap from your grave, and this effect becomes that trap Traps effect when that card is activated. And if destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dinorphia monster from your grave. Their true utility won't be revealed until we talk about the kinds of trap card effects you can emulate, but the ability to use those effects quicker than game mechanics would normally allow is already pretty far out, as well as bypassing any hard once per turn restrictions, because by that point it's not an effect of that card, but Kentragina's. And the more you lean into paying life points, the more powerful this Metal Gear Solid Revengeance boss gets. Dinorphia Stealth Yugioh has 0 attack and 2500 defense, requiring 2 Dinorphia monsters with different names as material. When your life points are 2000 or less, you don't pay life points to activate Dinorphia monster effects or trap cards in general. And when your opponent activates a monster effect as a quick effect, you can burn your opponent for damage equal to that monster's original attack. And if destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dinorphia monster from your grave. This card is an incredible enabler for your deck. Not only can you get free activations of your Dinorphia cards, well, you ever hear of a little card called Solemn Judgment? Strike? Warning? Scolding? Yeah, all of them can be free with this effect, and all of them are going to be a pain in your opponent's side to deal with. In fact, instead of you having to pay life points, you'll be making your opponent lose it. Whether your opponent's Verte summon of choice is Dragoon or Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, they're going to have to pay a huge chunk of change for the privilege of interaction. No matter what, your opponent's going to be in for a terrible time. The P here is silent. Alright, now it's time for our trap cards, and they can be divided into normal traps and counter traps, but no matter which one you look at, you have to pay half your life points to activate any of them. They also have one of 2 grave effects depending on what kind of trap card they are. All of your normal traps can be banished from your grave in response to your opponent activating a card or effect while you have 2000 or less life points to prevent you from taking any damage from your opponent's card effects for the rest of the turn. And your counter traps can be banished during damage calculation while you have 2000 or less life points if you would take battle damage to prevent you from taking that battle damage from that battle. These are in place to mitigate all the life point loss you're going to go through, giving you a way to prevent a surprise loss from a big chunk of damage while trying to make all your effects live. Let's start with the normal traps, especially since one of them is what gets you into your fusions, Dinorphia Domain. You can only activate it during the main phase, and you fusion summon a Dinorphia fusion monster from your extra deck using material from your hand, field, or deck. So it's a Shaddoll fusion, just not an El Shaddoll fusion. It also sets up your entire game plan all by itself. Domain sends both your main deck Dinorphias to the grave to summon Kentragina, use their effect to copy Domain, send 2 more copies of your main deck monsters to make Stealth Yugioh, and now your effects are free and you've gotten to that 2000 life point threshold. It's a lot of life to pay, but for a custom Domain like this, it'll be totally worth it. Dinorphia Alert special summons up to 2 Dinorphia monsters from your grave whose total levels equal 8 or less. But for the rest of the turn they can't attack, and you can't special summon monsters except Dinorphias. This is a pretty stellar way to get back your monsters, especially if Stealth Yugioh is making it free. Summon out Diplos and Theresia, trigger both of their on-summon effects, sending a trap to the grave and setting one up on the field, and potentially burning your opponent. Or get back Kentragina, who can then use its effect to copy Alert to get your 2 main deck monsters to get the same benefits. Or get a copy of Stealth Yugioh to restart the value train. No matter what you pick, you've got a lot of options, so your opponent's gonna have to stay on high alert. Dinorphia Brute is our deck's main form of removal, having you destroy both a Dinorphia monster you control and a card your opponent controls. It's worded like Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, which means no targeting. And like most good effects like this, it makes up for the disparity in card economy by virtue of all of our monsters having floating effects. So if your opponent has a particularly nasty card or they try to banish our monsters, this card can help push through those interactions with brute force. Okay, time for our counter traps. Let's begin with one that adds a new monster to the mix, Dinorphia Shell. It has to be activated at the start of your opponent's battle phase, and it special summons a Dinorphia token, which is a level 10 Dark Dinosaur monster with 0 attack and 3000 defense. And if you do, for the rest of the turn while you control that special summon token, your opponent can't target your other monsters for attacks. So if you're worried your opponent's gonna try and run over Stealth Yugioh to keep it from giving you discounts or burning your opponent, you can summon a big ol' mech suit to keep your team safe. And if it survives the turn, then that's free link material, since it can only redirect attacks for that turn. But if we're being honest here, I prefer my Dinorphia's D-shelled, thank you very much. Dinorphia Sonic can be activated in response to your opponent activating a spell or trap card while you control any Dinorphia monster. It negates the activation, destroys the card, then destroys a Dinorphia you control. Same principle as Brute. On paper it's a 2-for-1 trade, but the Dinorphia you blow up will just replace itself. And while we have access to cards like Solemn Judgment to handle that kind of stuff with more coverage, Sonic is searchable by Theresia. No, the main problem I have with this card is that it's causing huge traffic incidents when it could easily just fly over it. That's just mean. I'm starting to think the security bots in this setting might be onto something. Our last card is Dinorphia Reversion. You can only activate it while you control a Dinorphia fusion monster, and along with paying half your life points, you need to banish a counter trap from your grave as cost. And the effect of Reversion becomes that of the counter trap you banished as cost to activate this card when that counter trap is activated. Once again, this card isn't restricted to only copying your Dinorphia counter traps, so you can copy all of your Solemn cards with this as well. And notably, this doesn't copy the card's activation requirements, so unless there's some special rule that governs counter traps that I'm unaware of, you can copy Solemn Scolding even if you have other set cards in your back row, kind of like how Verte Anaconda can use Red Eye's Fusion after you've summoned a whole bunch of monsters. And with a name like Reversion and that glowing yellow eye, it might not be a bunch of humans with dinosaur augmentations, it might be the other way around, and would confirm another theory that I've had for a long time. The true nature of dinosaurs isn't savage aggro, but something much more sinister. Calculating control play. They're not only cold-blooded, but their tactics are cold-hearted. Okay, so that's all the Dinorphia cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we may want to get our life points low, but we want our opponents to be even lower. We have a lot of control elements, but despite that, our protection effects from the grave can only help us so much, so we want to end things ASAP. That means we have to hit the ground running, keep our opponent from resolving anything, and to go to game 2 before our opponent knows what hit him. But what can we play to help them out? Aside from the Solemns, there's a lot of trap cards we can play that become a lot better in our deck, either because we can bypass the life point cost, or because we're going to be lowering our life points by an absurd amount. Hope for Escape, for instance, can easily be a draw 3 after 2 activations of our Dinorphias, keeping our hand stocked up. Trap of Darkness is effectively Kentragena for any normal trap in our grave. Burst Rebirth isn't particularly exciting, but it's a free summon under Stealth Bergia, and if your 0 defense monster gets destroyed, then congratulations, they'll just get replaced with another monster. But Vanity's Call is probably the biggest bomb you can throw in. Once again, as long as my interpretation of how Reversion works holds true, you can banish Vanity's Call from your grave with it whenever your opponent stacks a bunch of simultaneous effects together to chain block, then just blank all of them. Of course, we can't ignore all the outstanding dinosaur support that already exists. Fossil Dig is a great searcher as well as Soul-Eating Oviraptor. That monster can even destroy Diplos or Theresia to get back either of our fusions, especially Stealth Bergia, since the monster has to come back in defense position. And speaking of the most annoying of battle positions, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno makes a great alternate win condition for the deck. You can even tech in Double Evolution Pill to pair with your hand traps if you're feeling spicy. I also think Miscellaneous Source might be able to help, but I'm not sure, I haven't read it yet. As for a silly tech pick, I'd like to see if Axe of Fools does anything for the deck, especially Kentragena. By negating its own attack reduction effect, you get the whole 4,000 plus an additional 1,000 on top of it. And if it's not a good time to turn off Kentragena's effect, you can always gift it to an opponent's monster to negate their effect. You can also play Skill Drain, a card you don't have to pay for if Stealth Bergia is active, and now you've got a 4,000 attack beater that can run over Dragoons. Talk about your apex predators. And that's all I've got to say about Dinorphias. The theme has a strong start, and while it has a lot of tools at its disposal, it feels like it lacks a decisive game ender. But we may see a bit more support for them in the future. My eyes are on potential level 2 Dinorphias you can summon alongside your level 6s from grave using Alert, but I don't think they need much more to go from Rogue's Gallery to ferocious format flatteners. Just, you know, also make sure to play some Mystical Space Typhoons. You wouldn't want your entire theme to fold to a single Royal Decree. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Dinorphias on the edge of getting their big break, or are they still trapped in the amber of unplayability? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. It really does a lot to help me out. And if you want to fund me in my quest to make informative guides of all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, check out my YouTube channel membership or Patreon, and you can get some pretty sweet perks to go along with it. In fact, I'd like to take this time to thank my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, CozyBoat275, Nebula Navigators, Benjamin Meisner, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh, Gloomba331, Jared C, Maven, Panther J, Shooting Star 3300, The Wizard Moose and the Fresh Prince of Conair, Cosmic Crusaders, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. And if you want to see some more videos where fusion summoning plays an important part, check out Albaz and their story in this playlist. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.